My dad is a cop, and I remember that he called me one night and said that he wanted to tell me how glad he was that I'm not as stupid as the guy who arrested that night. An idiot high schooler was caught stealing alcohol after his fake ID was rejected. His fake ID said he was born in 2001, 3 years younger than he actually was. Poor guy couldn't work out why his ID didn't work. My dad recommended that he pay better attention in math class. A little over a month ago, my apartment was broken into whilst my boyfriend was still inside. He works nights, so at midday he's still fast asleep and didn't notice this guy come in and rummage around until he throws the bedroom door open, panics at seeing my boyfriend, and runs off. My boyfriend looks around the apartment and finds that the laptops, tablets, etc. are still there, and he must have run off before getting to all that, but a handful of smaller valuables such as USBs, keys, wallets were gone. He also did a fair amount of damage rummaging around and spray painting our walls, also ate our biscuits. What was there, however, were the idiot's bags. He'd left his school rucksack containing some schoolwork, some of our possessions, his ID, some years old school papers with his parents' phone number on it, etc. So he's already an idiot. We know who he is. The police are having a laugh with us a little later about it. And as one of them takes my boyfriend's statement, we hear a knock at the door. I go to answer it as a friend said he was coming over anyway, and I find the same guy from the ID outside my door. He looks at me, then at the police officer behind me, still holding the bags, and asks, "Can I have my bags back, please?" After a stunned moment, he's grabbed by the police officer and my boyfriend confirms that this is the guy. He's arrested on the spot. The police said it was the dumbest thing they'd ever seen, like something out of a sitcom. It made local news. Old roommate was/is a cop. He came home to tell me an ATM was robbed after hours for $15,240. The next day, the man who robbed the ATM deposited $15,240 into his personal account at the bank he robbed the night prior. I knew a guy who got busted selling weed. He went to his hearing at the court and went through the metal detector with an Altoid tin full of ecstasy pills in his pocket. It set off the metal detector. Sheriff's deputies searched him, found the pills, and arrested him on the spot. My ex stole a car and went to pick up his friend at the police station in the stolen car. He parked right in front of a cop. The cop ran the plates and escorted him into the building. Next day, he was on the news as the most stupid criminal in town. Took a vehicle burglary report where the victim found a driver's license sitting on her driver's seat that the suspect must have left behind. Seems damning, but if he had any criminal smarts, he would just say that his license was stolen and the thief must have dropped it while breaking into this new victim's vehicle. Without any other evidence, the case would have gone nowhere. The next day, I take a report at a church that was a couple of blocks away from the vehicle burglary. This guy stole the video cameras from the building. He must have thought the footage came from the camera because when we checked the video, there was a high-def close-up of the suspect's face as he removed the camera. Good evidence, sure, but I still didn't know who the guy was until I looked at the license I collected the day prior and saw it was the same exact guy. Can't go into much detail, but kid 14 shot another kid 15 in the leg after a fight in their apartment complex. The victim is able to describe the gun the shooter used in detail. We get shooter's name from another kid who knows him from school. My partner looks up his Instagram, and would you believe it? There he is posing with the gun described to us exactly. Social media is a treasure trove of wannabe gangsters incriminating themselves. Went to a job of 2 males attempting to break into a car. Job description said they had been at it for at least an hour. Got there, and the car was theirs. They had apparently locked themselves out. Checks confirm it did belong to one of the person's mum. On their person was stolen mail and heaps of phones and new stuff in boxes in the car, so they got arrested for theft anyway. Ended up that the driver's door they had been trying to break into was the only locked door out of the 4. Was unlocked everywhere else the whole time they were there. Teen gets fired from Red Lobster, returns to rob same restaurant that night. They refuse to give him money from register, so he grabs charity coin box, muscular dystrophy or similar, and then he leaves on bicycle. I go to find him and see coins scattered about. Follow trail off, same, which leads me to him hiding in bushes at a church. Bicycle was leaning up against the bush he was in. From the local newspaper, 2 young men in a pickup truck on a back road stopped a courting Amish couple in a buggy and told the couple to give them all of their money. Spoiler, the Amish don't generally have money. They do have good memories though, and told the cops the license plate number. The inept criminals were locals too and should have known better than to try and rob the Amish. We had an inmate that would constantly call Crime Stoppers on his contraband cell phone and try to get them to give him the reward if he confessed to his crimes. He did this several times a month. Not a cop myself, but about 10 years ago I got held up and robbed by a group of 3 guys with knives. All they wanted was the money in my wallet, so me being the smart guy not wanting to mess with knives just obliged. At the end of the ordeal, he put the knife to my throat and said, "If you ever tell the cops my name is redacted, I will slice your throat right now." So I went home, called the cops, tell them where it happened, and gave them the name the guy told me. The name instantly rung a bell with them since the guy had come into contact with the police in the past. Cops went to the spot where I was robbed, and they were laying in ambush for a new guy to appear. They could instantly identify the guy. He was arrested, and that's about it. I went to a domestic violence call where the woman claimed her husband hit her. When I asked her how it happened, she told me he couldn't provide the kind of life she wanted him to give her. She stated since he had a heart attack and got lupus, he wasn't working, so she decided she should start inviting some friends over to be a prostitute for money. Mind you, she's telling me, a fully uniformed officer, all of this. She says he should act as the person who handles the money for her, i.e. her pimp. She then calls someone to come over and tells her husband that after she gets paid for the deed, he should hold the guy at knife point and take the rest of his money. She said he refused to help her with this, so they got into an argument. He pushed past her to get out of the apartment. She claimed that was the assault she called me for. I asked her if she understood she just admitted to planning a felony crime. She looked shocked that planning a prostitution and robbery was wrong at all, and did not get why I wasn't arresting her husband for trying to remove himself from her stupid plan to get them both arrested. Not me, but my buddy is a cop and told me that this one kid in particular he dealt with for years. No cleverness to him. Numerous times he walked into his neighbor's garage in broad daylight and just stole his bike. Constantly stole from stores in plain view, even the occasional minor assault or burglary. He always got caught, like had never gotten away with any of his hundreds of crimes, but because he was a minor, there were never any real repercussions. A few days before he turned 18, my friend and another officer went to his house to basically remind him that if he does anything after that, he will face real punishment as an adult and he'll get 0 breaks. Like a last-ditch effort to be helpful. 2 days after his 18th birthday, he's caught committing an armed robbery. Pretty sure he's doing a few decades behind bars. Ex-law enforcement officer here, so I get a call a couple years ago to a lady who says she is being threatened. I respond to a very rural area and she shows me her cell phone, and it is a chainmail text from an unknown number. The message showed a picture of a girl with a gag in her mouth, and she is looking at the camera and holding a sign with both hands that said help. The text of the message stated that she was in Amsterdam. She didn't forward the text to 10 people, and look what happened to her. I explained to the lady that it was a hoax and explained what a chain mail message was. She refused to believe me and became argumentative. When I offered to contact Interpol for her, she did not know what that was. That wasn't good enough, and she just kept saying the girl needed help. I asked her if she knew the girl, and she said no, and she believed the girl tried to send her the message using any made-up number she could instead of contacting anybody she knew. My reasoning was once again shot down, and she said again that the girl needed her help. I remember driving away and the lady screaming at me that I needed to help that girl. I responded with a single no over my PA as I quickly sped away. Both of those women were never heard from again. Now forward this to 10 people. Not a cop, but worked at a 7-Eleven in a rough part of Chicago. Had 2 guys come in and ask for 2 bottles of Grey Goose. I asked for their IDs. They handed them over, and I grabbed the 2 bottles from behind the counter to ring them up. They proceeded to grab the bottles and book it out of there, leaving their IDs on the counter. I called the police. They came in asking for a description of the thieves, and I handed them the IDs. Cops were in disbelief at the stupidity, left and went to the address on one of the IDs that was about 2 blocks away. About 15 minutes later, they walked in with the 2 guys and bottles of Grey Goose. Poor guys didn't even have a chance to open them. I confirmed it was them, didn't press charges, took the bottles of Grey Goose back, and went on with my overnight shift. Not a cop, but I've got a pretty good story. Once when I went to the grocery store, there were a few officers inside getting statements from some of the staff. Apparently some guy had dropped a gallon-sized Ziploc bag full of crack on the floor while he was walking out. Staff members noticed it right away and called the police, right before the guy comes back into the store, demanding that the staff return his crack. He was still arguing with and threatening them when the police walked in the door. So I'm sitting in the station doing paperwork. I look out of the window, and a few yards away is a bus stop. A young lad is smashing the glass of the bus stop as a way of showing off to a couple of girls. So I sigh, walk about 20 yards over to him, and arrest him. Another time, a lad had just broken into a pharmacy and stolen some drugs. Sleeping tablets, which he started taking, maybe to hide the evidence. Who knows how these people's minds work. There's a foot chase, which gets slower and slower and slower. I ended up just walking slowly behind him. The guy fell asleep while I was booking him in. There was a kid who sold drugs on my floor of the college dorm who wasn't the brightest. One night he was driving back to the dorm and a police car comes behind him and turns on the lights. He stored all of his drugs in his car and assumed they were pulling him over for possession. He proceeds to drive through a red light and pull into the dorm parking lot to hide. Mind you, his car was covered in bumper stickers, had a kayak rack and a vanity plate to top it all off. The parking lot had only one entrance and exit too. Apparently he thought the police car wouldn't go through a red light to follow him. Long story short, they were just going to warn him for having a taillight out and nothing more. Instead, he ended up in the local jail and expelled from college. The funniest part is that his ledger of all the transactions and the dollar amounts, products, and buyers was also right there in the car. He was one stupid criminal. Ex-police officer here. I pulled over a dude for having a brake light out. Nothing serious, ran his plates and the likes. It all came back clean and nothing seemed off. Until he exclaimed, "I haven't had any alcohol," in an over-enthusiastic tone. For some reason, he thought this was a good idea, so nearly got away with it. Vodka doesn't smell. I breathalyzed him. Legal limit in England is 35. He blew over 60. Arrested on the spot and his vehicle towed. Idiot. To clarify, I did not mean that vodka is odorless. What I meant by that comment was that compared to beer or wine or other alcohols, vodka has a very mild smell. Most drunk drivers I pull either smelt of a stronger smelling alcohol or had obvious side effects of the drink, making it easy to see they were intoxicated. Hope this clarifies it a bit. My father is a police officer. He once told me a story of a call he went to for reports of a man and woman fighting in an apartment. Call came from neighbors for noise complaints and concern. He was third shift, so this was at some point very late at night when all the crazy people are up and at him. When he arrived, he could hear the yelling through the door. He knocked and let them know it was the police. There was immediate silence and a man answered the door, completely naked. The naked man didn't even give my dad a chance to speak or ask questions. The first thing he said was, "I don't have a knife behind my back." Well, he definitely did have a knife behind his back. And the naked woman he was with had drugs, which was what they were fighting over. They both got arrested that night. Tip, don't do illegal drugs. And if you do, don't answer the door for cops. As a teacher, remember asking a student who was looking a bit out of it what was up. Sleepily, she replies, "Didn't get much sleep." I asked her if everything was fine as you normally do. "Yeah, it's okay. My uncle got arrested last night though." Low socioeconomic area, so it's not as unusual as you'd think. Anyway, she tells the story. Uncle's so stupid. He and his mate thought it would be a good idea to steal a local ATM. He has his mate smash through the windows, put chains around it, and dragged it out with their big truck. They decided it worked well, so they ended up dragging all the way home. She gives a half smile. Thing is, cops found them easy. Just followed the marks on the road all the way to the front door.